Yo, yo, yo. I'm Candy. I be knitting, and this week I be showing you this sweater again. It is now officially a finished, again, official is a strong word. I'm done with it right now. This is the Treysta by Steingass. Last time I showed this to y'all, I was not sure about the collar. Um, it was, the neckline is quite wide on this, and it has an unfinished rolled stockinette neckline. And I was debating between leaving it as is, open. I was also thinking about adding ribbed and a ribbed collar, and then my last choice was to do a crochet chain on the inside to kind of bring the whole thing in. I decided on the third option. I have inserted a crochet chain on the inside of this collar, and so the last time y'all saw this, and you can bring up the last episode, it was just like maybe a half inch, maybe like a centimeter more open up here, and I've put a crochet chain on the inside, so it's brought it in a little more. And not only that, it's brought more structure in here, because my concern was the top was open, and it looked nice, it looked fine, but I just know from experience that over time sweaters get dragged down by their own weight, and so it's going to add in a little bit more structure and stability so the collar stays at the right size for a longer time. I'm not going to do, I will do a pattern deep dive for this sweater, so I'll do a whole video dedicated to everything that went to the sweater, but I just wanted to give y'all that little update. I don't have any like grand ideas about the crochet chain. I've heard people say you can put a crochet chain inside of a loose neckline to tighten it up, and I literally just used the context clues and just started picking up knit stitches and crochet chaining on the inside. I'm sure there's probably full-blown tutorials out there of what exactly you're supposed to do. I'm not a strong crocheter. I can make a crochet chain, and so I was able to use that level of crocheting and just my own intuition to figure out what I was supposed to do. The first time I did it, I picked up every stitch, and it was just kind of, it looked pretty similar to how it did before. And then the second time I ripped it all out, and then I went back and did every other stitch, and it got to be what I believe is going to be the perfect size. If it does start to stretch out again, I do have the option to pull this back out again or do another one. I have the feeling that this is probably going to get felted to the inside. You probably can't see it at all. I just used the same purple yarn as that crochet chain, and so eventually it will probably get felted, and I did have a hard time seeing the stitches. This is actually backwards. This is the back, because the only thing I did back here was I tied it in a knot and made a bow in the very back. This will act as my tag to show me where the back of the sweater is. Once again, if you want to know exactly how to do this method, probably should look up a tutorial, because I don't think tying in a knot and making a bow is something that they would teach you in any reputable knitting class, but I think it's fine, and it shows me where the back of the sweater is, which obviously I needed that. So this is the Treysta by Steingass, and probably the next time y'all see me will be a video just talking about this sweater and the pattern, the yarn, what I thought of the pattern, modifications I did, etc., etc., etc. All right, next thing I have is a finished object. This is a Flax by TinCanKnits. This is for my child. So this is the 4 to 6 year old size. And I'm not gonna go too into detail with this because it's the Flax by TinCanKnits. It is probably the most ubiquitous sweater pattern out there. There are tutorials, there are whole knit classes built around this pattern. It is a free pattern by TinCanKnits. I use the app, and I did the worsted weight version. And I did the worsted weight version. I did the short rows. And I was going for, I had a plan. I wanted to do the 3/4 sleeve. In the pattern, they have an option for short sleeve, 3/4 length sleeve, and full length sleeve. I wanted to do the 3/4 length sleeve because I thought that that would just look really adorable on a child, because it just like, it's like kind of like this almost like incongruent thing where it's a small child, but it's a more sophisticated cut on a sweater. And also, as always, I was like, I don't know if I'll have enough yarn. The yarn here is a Caron Big Cake. I had more than enough yarn of the Caron Big Cake in the color Peach Party. And so I told her, I was like, oh, what do you think of a actually, I didn't say 3/4 length sleeve because she's 6 years old. She doesn't know what 3/4 is. I said, what do you think if the sweater stops right about here? And she looked at me like I had 3 heads, and she's like, no, sleeves go here. And I was just like, okay. And so I did lengthen the sleeves. I also lengthened, because it's the 4 to 6 pattern. My daughter is 6 years old, but she's on the thinner side. And I have 2 daughters. This is my younger daughter. And my younger daughter, my older daughter, they both have the same chest circumference. And so I'm just like, I don't think she's going to get much wider this way, if I'm just going to guess based on how my older child has grown. But they are both fairly tall and grow tall rather quickly. And so I did a deeper yoke. I did the yoke from the next size up. And then I got to the sleeves, started doing the sleeves, and I was just like, oh, these sleeves are going to be fine because the yoke is a little bit longer. So the sleeves came out a little bit longer, and I was measuring it on her and trying it on her, and we decided the sleeves were where they needed to be. And speaking of my kids getting taller, I bound off, she put the sleeves on, and the sleeves stopped right about here. So it's about bracelet length versus 3/4 length. And I was going for the full length, but I think it looks really cute. I've expressed in the past that I'm concerned about her, long sleeves on a kid. You don't want them to get snagged on things. You don't want them to get messy. You're constantly pushing your sleeves up, not trying to get, mud and paint and all that kind of stuff on them. So it looks cute on her, and I think it's going to be very practical on her. I did do the panels. This is what the Flax is known for, this garter stitch panel, and I think that may have changed the length of the sleeve. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the acrylic yarn. When I washed it, I did wash it in the washing machine. And now I know that this is why I intentionally used a yarn I knew it was machine washable for a 6-year-old. What else do I want to say about this? Yeah, mostly just did it from the pattern from the app. The changes I made is I changed the beginning of round. The last time I tried the Flax, I ended up ripping it out because the beginning of round is on one of the shoulders, and all I did was resituate the pattern. So the beginning of the round is at the back center, and then I do 8 stitch markers. So I do 1 stitch marker for each raglan increase rather than doing a mark for each side of the raglan increase. And the biggest difference I did is the increases in the original Flax are knit front backs. They're all knit front backs. They don't care about right leaning or left leaning decreases, or increases rather. And I substituted that with yarn overs. One, because I think with a worsted weight 100% acrylic sweater, a little bit of ventilation will be nice. And 2, I just think it's super precious, and it's actually a nod to this dress, which I don't think most of y'all have seen. This is a dress I made for my 6-year-old back when she was like 2. When I first learned to knit, this is the first thing I made her. And it's a little toddler dress, and it has these yarn over increases and this little puff sleeve, and she's starting to grow out of this. It fits her like a shirt now rather than a dress, and I can see it just getting tighter and tighter. So, and I told her, I was like, I think it might be time to pass this on to someone else, and she seemed rather bummed out. And so in this pattern, I wanted to echo that. The other notes I have is, this was a Karen big cake, and this is all the yarn I have left. I did the body straight down, and then after I finished the body, I cut each color and then color controlled the sleeves. And my intention was to match the body, but with the sleeve length and the amount of yarn I had left over, that wasn't possible. So it goes into this berry color. The peach color actually matches the body. And then I just went from there. I just weighed the yarn and did half on each sleeve. And I think that came out really nice. And then I wove in as I went, just so I didn't have to deal with weaving in a whole bunch of ends. Then this deep purple color that I did on the contrasting ribbing is some Encore Plymouth Yarn Company Plymouth Yarn Company Encore. It's an acrylic wool blend. And I just thought that that would add some nice structure and I love to do like a little contrast, especially, you know, stash busting, from a stash busting perspective. And with this big Karen cake, I wasn't sure that I would be able to match all of the ribbing. And I think having all the matching ribbing pulls together everything really nicely. And it's the Plymouth yarn. The color is 1606. They have numbers, not names, for the yarn. And this was, I believe, a Christmas present from one of my kids. Like, I got this in my stocking one year for one of my kids. So lucky them, right? And with all of that, I'll probably will hold on to this yarn. It's nice to have 4-weight acrylic and acrylic adjacent yarn. I could make a matching hat. My kids don't really wear hats, and I make them a lot of, not make them a lot, but we have knitted hats in the house. And so that's not high on my priority list, but I will hold on to this because I think this is enough yarn to do something nice with. So what will my next, oh, no, I got one more work in progress. So that's finished objects. I guess we're going on to works in progress because this is going to be a very traditional video. My work in progress, last time I showed y'all a finished blanket for one of my sister-in-laws, and this is a second blanket for my second sister-in-law. And let me see if I can show you. It's not blankety, it looks more scarfy right now. So right now I have one square, and I am working on another square. And if this pattern does not look familiar, don't feel bad. This is Kagan's quilt, which is a blanket pattern that involves a bunch of quilting motifs. And it is designed for fingering weight yarn. If y'all remember, I made it in DK weight yarn, and now I am making it in bulky weight yarn. I'm not doing the whole blanket in bulky weight. I'm doing one of the motifs, and it's like, the intention here is that it's 4 squares, and they're made up of all these triangles making short rows. Right now, these are 2 solid squares though. And so I told y'all I loved that pattern. I thought it was well worth the money because it has all of these different quilt inspired motifs in it. And I definitely knew I was going to use it again. And so this is Homespun by Lion Brand. And I had 4 balls of this. I have 2 in this blue color. Then I have one in this kind of orangey variegated color, and then this solid orange. And my intention was to make 1 quilt square out of each color, and or break up the blue with triangles of orange. I finished this first square of blue, and I literally had like 2 or 3 more rows to go to finish a square. So 1 square takes more than 1 ball, and I have 4 balls. So I was like, I'm not gonna have enough yarn for this. Ugh, what am I gonna do? Bummer. If I had I'm using size 9mm needles. I like the fabric I'm getting, but I probably could have, if I had gone down a size in the needle, I would have gotten there. But it's a DK weight pattern. I'm trying it out on bulky weight yarn. there was really no way of knowing if it was going to work out or not. So I was like this close to ripping it out and just doing like, okay, I'll just do stripes like I did the other blanket. But last time we were together, I told you I was going to a yarn swap, and I was like, well, let me see what they got at the yarn swap, because if there's two things a yarn swap is good for, it is cotton dishcloth yarn and homespun yarn, which most people call homespun yarn hell-spun yarn because they do not like working with it, and I don't mind working with it. So those are the two things I'm always on the lookout for, people getting rid of their cotton yarn and getting rid of their homespun. Did not find any cotton yarn this time. Maybe I cleared them out last time, but I walked in and there was legitimately this bag of homespun yarn, and I went, yoink! I don't need this much. I'll use what I need and then take it back to the next yarn swap, because I only wanted the homespun for this blanket project. And so I found a bag, and it's 4 skeins of Lion Brand homespun. It's got the old school Lion Brand on it. It is in the colorway Plantation. I don't know if they make this color anymore. It's kind of, if you can't tell, it's got some blues and greens in it. This one is more of a, this one's more kind of blue, green, teal dominant. This one's more blue dominant, but it has like some warm tones of orange in it, which was why I was bringing the orange. So my plan now is to do a square of this original blue I had, and now I'm working on a square of this greenish blue. Then I'm going to do a half and half square, one triangle in the light orange, one triangle in the dark orange, and then I'm going to finish with a square of this bluish green. So the bluish green will be diagonal from each other, and then there'll be one square of this orange. So it's going to be very graphic, I guess you could say. The orange I'm bringing in, I think, is going to work really well because my sister-in-law, when she got married, orange was her big color that she had, and so I think it's going to be a nice nod to that, and then just kind of these subtle greens and blues kind of in the background. I do want to do an I-cord border. I need to kind of think about that, because basically what happens is you're doing short rows and working all these squares, and this was cast on with a provisional cast on, so you graft the last square back to the first square, and so then I'll have these 4 squares together. And I think a nice I-cord, especially kind of going back to what I was saying about using that purple in that sweater, when I'm using kind of all kinds of mixed up, matched up yarn, I like to like unify them with one border or one color in the ribbing. And I think it like takes it from looking scrappy to looking a little bit more intentional and sophisticated. So that's the plan here. And hopefully I'll be done with this soon. We are back to school. We're in the fall. Both of my sister-in-laws have teenage high schoolers. And so this will be great, kind of like Friday Night Lights, keeping warm in the stadium kind of blanket. And so hopefully they both like them. The other thing I want to show you that I did not show y'all last week. So I'll finish the first blanket's done. I'll finish the second blanket, wash both of them, dry both of them. And just in case, this is just in case I finish the blankets and end up gifting them before y'all see the final project. I got these tags from my husband, Mr. Rulude, for Christmas. They're from Boy, and they just have like the little clever little sayings on them. This took forever, one of a kind, you better use this. And so they're like, they look kind of leather-ish. I'm pretty sure they're probably more so, they're definitely plastic, but they have that leather look to them. So I'll pick out one of these phrases that I think fits each of my sister-in-laws and sew that to the blanket. I think that's going to be a really cute use of these. So now we've done finished objects, works in progress. Let's go on to what my next big project is going to be, because once things get cast on, we got to move on to the next one, right? So y'all know the ongoing saga of wanting to knit my husband, Mr. Rulude, a sweater. I showed y'all this yarn last time. This is my hand spun. This is taupe from R.H. Lindsay. I spun this 2-ply on a drop spindle, and I knew for a fact I was not going to have enough yarn for a full-grown, a tall, muscular man. I'll put it to you that way. And so since then, I dyed some yarn, and then I pulled out this yarn, which is like some OG hand spun. This is the first time I went to Maryland Sheep and Wool. I got a massive Lincoln Cross fleece. I didn't even, the only thing I owned was a drop spindle, and I bought a 9-pound fleece. My first time buying a fleece, my first time going to Maryland Sheep and Wool. Was it a mistake? I will not call it a mistake. Call it a learning experience. Would I recommend anyone else on the planet do that? Absolutely not. But here we are. If you notice, kind of close though. And so what I've done since then is I started to swatch. And this is my swatch. And in case you can't tell or don't notice, here is that new hand spun, and then I started striping in the OG hand spun just to see what it would look like. The OG hand spun has a little bit more white in it, and it's got some, it's thicker. It's obviously thicker. It's obviously more uneven, and it's got some bits of white in it. And that's that. It's still a little damp, so I took measurements pre-blocking. This is post-blocking. It also has a bit of lanolin in it still, because I was really great at processing fleeces then. I since washed it, and I'm gonna wait till it's fully dry to block it. I had one pattern picked out. It called for sport weight on size 6 needles. My gut was telling me to start this on size 7 needles. And so I started this with the size 7 needles, and then I started striping in the other color, and I was not getting gauge for a sport weight on size 6 needles. And so then I did what's on the on Ravelry, where you can search for patterns by the gauge of the yarn you're getting. It's like all the way at the bottom when you're doing your different search criteria. One of the criteria is gauge, and I was getting 17 stitches per inch. And so I typed in 17 to 19 stitches per inch on size 7 needles, just to see, you know, get a range of things I could play around with. And I was seeing worsted weight, worsted weight, worsted weight, worsted weight. And I was just like, worsted weight? Huh, I have a book of just worsted weight patterns. So I went upstairs to my office, the place we're in right now, and I had one pattern picked out on Ravelry. I also bought this book, the Ann Budd Book of Sweater Patterns, and my intention was to use this with my hand spun because it adjusts for gauge. It just gives you basic sweater patterns, and then it gives you directions for every gauge. It just felt very overwhelming. My first time knitting a pullover for my husband, and I'm knitting with hand spun, and I'm following a book that I've not used before. I don't think it would be terribly hard, but it just felt like one more thing I would want to overcome. I'd rather, you know, maybe knit something for the children, or maybe knit something where I know my gauge really well, and then follow one of the patterns in here so I know how to use this book properly. It's just chart after chart after chart of like 2 or 3 pages for each type of sweater. So I was like, I need to spend a little bit more time studying this. The book I'm referring to is this Barocco portfolio. This, once again, my husband, he was traveling for work and stopped into a yarn store, and I don't know the whole story. I don't know if he picked this out or the shop clerks picked this out, or he spent a certain amount of money and he got this free. I don't know the whole story. This is for sale. I think it's like maybe $20 or something like that. And then the individual pattern I'm going to show you sells for about $8, but I don't know what he paid for it or how he got it. And I started looking through this, and it's the Barocco Portfolio number 8, the family collection, and it's every pattern in here is knit with worsted weight yarn from the Barocco collection. So it's Barocco Lanas, Barocco Ultra Wool, Barocco Vintage. And in here is, where is it? It's called the Durak. It's D-U-R-A-K. Everything I talk about will be linked below. And it's just a very simple pullover. And it has this little suggested stripe detail, but you could just as well leave the stripe out. But what I like about this is, one, it's knit on size 7 needles. The gauge is 19 stitches per inch. I have not measured my final gauge on here yet. We'll see what it is. 19 stitches on 25 rows per 4 inches. And the other thing I like about this is that it's completely knit flat and seamed, which is what I've specifically been looking for my husband's sweater. And it's surprisingly hard to find sweaters for a traditionally masculine body that are just plain stockinette, no cables, no color work, nothing like that, that are 100% seamed. And maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but also it's like, in general, it feels like the trend is mostly, and these are knit from the bottom up. All these pieces are knit from the bottom up. Yeah, most people prefer top-down patterns, top-down raglans. It's just the direction that's most popular and that most people are into. I specifically wanted the seaming because I just think one, I'm trying to imitate some of his favorite sweaters, and most of his favorite sweaters are fully seamed set-in sleeves. And I just think it's going to look really nice with his build and body structure, emphasizing all the places that he likes to emphasize on his body. And so we'll see once my swatch dries what my gauge is, and what we're looking for. The tricky thing here is going to be, he has a 38-inch chest. This calls for 2 to 6 inches of positive ease. And there's a 40-inch option. There's a 44-inch option. Pre-washing my swatch, I'm getting less stitches per inch. So that means I should probably go for the smaller size. But also I'm an infamously tight knitter, but also I'm dealing with hand spun. So there's just it's gonna be a learning experience. I think after I do the swatch, I'm gonna start with one sleeve, and that'll kind of be like my beta swatch, knitting a little bit more area with it and see how it works. I am gonna knit the sleeves just in that newer hand spun because I want the sleeves to just be really slick and breathable and, just have the right look. But y'all saw how this sweater had stripes across the front, so I'm just going to use the OG hand spun as kind of like the stripes, so I can put a little bit of my personality in there, but in a way that he's still going to want to wear it, and it's going to be more his style. I think it's going to be a nice balance of the both of us, with me mixing a little bit of texture, but still keeping the color really simple, keeping the construction just really well tailored. Also, that thicker hand spin I think is gonna, look really nice in the chest area. He's got like nice broad shoulders and a nice chest. I'm a fan. And I think this is gonna be a good look for him. I'm really excited about this. The key here is gonna be just patience and working slowly and being willing to rip things out and just get everything just right. The other nerve-wracking thing about this is there are 0 Ravelry projects of this. I think this came out in like 2022, I want to say. And I don't know if it's just, people don't want to make seamed sweaters, or if Barocco yarn is kind of not the coolest, hippest yarn. Mel Kennelly is the designer, and Mel looks like they did all the patterns in here, and they do a lot for Barocco. And so maybe I'll look at their whole portfolio and see, what other projects they have, and if anyone has any issues with like their pattern writing style. But it all seems pretty straightforward. But yeah, wish me luck on this one. I'm gonna show y'all one last thing, and then I'm gonna get out of your way and go do movie night with my husband with the broad shoulders. In the nice chest. This is some hand spun. I think what I'm going to do is like try to do like a little bit of hand spun every episode, instead of like waiting months and then doing a whole hand spun episode. So this is the hand spun corner of today's episode. This is some very old hand spun. I've been kind of slowly digging through some of my old hand spun and trying to like fix it. And this is literally my very, very first hand spun. I believe it's merino. It's on the drop spindle. It's 3-ply, and it was white merino. This has been solar dyed with avocado. Well, I did avocado in the crock pot, and then I put it in a jar and solar dyed it with marigold. So that's the yellow and pink you're seeing. It's a very pale pink and some yellows. And I pulled this out and it just looked a mess, like over twisted, not even plied in some places, clumped together. And I was just like, I thought I could just, one of those things where I could just run it right back through the wheel. And I was just like, no, this needs to be completely re-spun. And funnily enough, when I first started spinning, one of the first people I came by was Lauren McElroy, who is mother of pearl. And they had this short or this reel where they had plied some yarn, didn't like the colors, and was taking apart the plies. And I was just like, no, I'm never doing that. I don't care. I would never do that. That sounds torturous. And 5 years later, here we are. I completely undid this yarn, found out halfway through, because I thought I could just run it through the wheel and like loosen up the ply and then it'll be easier to take apart. Halfway through, I realized I had spun it the wrong direction. I had no idea about S and Z twist when I first started drop spindling, because it just overwhelmed my brain. And so I literally had this moment, and I remember it too, where I was plying the yarn and I set it down and then I picked it back up and I was just like, am I going the right direction? Should I be doing it? And I would spin it, the drop spindle I used to park and draft, and so I would like spin it sideways and then park it, so I wasn't even looking at the spindle to see if it was clockwise or counterclockwise. And there was I remember very, very vividly where my brain kind of stuttered and I was like, well, it's not going to matter anyway. And I just kind of kept going, and it did matter. And so it was kind of a mess. I did get it apart and then I did respin it. It is obviously not perfect, but it is far more usable now, and it has far more areas of usable yarn. And I would actually use this yarn now. Some people say that they would never use their first hand spun, but I actually like it a lot, because now I spin so thin and I have like some places where it's like really like lofty and soft, and so that is nice. I am gonna finish it again, so I am gonna soak this and snap it, but that is that. There are still areas that are so over twisted that I was not able to ply it properly, but like I said, definite improvement. I'm not even sure if all the singles were spun in the right direction. I'm sure the singles were not spun in the correct direction. Like I used to write notes like spin away from you or towards you, stuff like that, which I'm like, that no way. So that's that. Let me know, are you knitting for anyone special in your life right now? I know some people do like gift knitting. It's not necessarily gifts for me. Like I'm knitting it and I'm gonna give it to the person, but I'm not like a Christmas knitter. Are you a Christmas knitter? Are you a Hanukkah knitter? Let me know in the comments. You can comment below. You can also email me, candibknittin@gmail.com. I've gotten some really great emails from people. Like if there's ever a time, especially since my Ravelry is very touch and go, if there's ever a time I talk about something and you're confused or you want more I am happy to answer those questions. I have answered questions in my emails for other people. You know, I had someone that knit the Vertices Unite and they're like, my pattern looks a little different than what you did. Let me know what you did. And so you can do that, candibknittin@gmail.com. I am at Rulud on Instagram. You can follow me there. You can chat with me there. Like this video, share this video. Until the next time, peace.